relationships, maintaining meaningful relationships. So I truly enjoy incorporating exercise into my practice. And I even invite my clients within the practice, when they know that I am teaching, I'll invite them out to do a class, because many people don't know about it. They want to try it, but they're fearful and they don't want to ask the questions. And so when you're creating that space for welcoming and opportunities for people to experience things differently, I definitely want to jump on that opportunity. So I do also teach within higher education. I am adjunct professor at USC, University of Southern California, Hampton University, their online program, and also recently the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. So all in all, I am a very busy woman, but at the same time, I do know how to say no, thank you. I'm closing off my calendar and I'm just going to sit and watch Abbott Elementary all day. So I do engage in the utmost of self-care, as well as my spiritual practices and beliefs. So thank you for having me.
Ooh, listen, these two women you have me moderating, they are something to aspire to. I have not been in the field that long. I graduated in August 2021 with my master's and went into a group private practice. I haven't been able to build. I feel like it's going to take me 25, 30 years to build up a repertoire like these two have. And I love Dr. Stephens, the self-care aspect. That's one of the things I noticed with a lot of like me and other clinicians starting out. We do not know how to balance it. It's like we know how to tell our clients they need self-care, but then we don't get it ourselves. And that has been my struggle, trying to balance everything and make sure I'm taking care of myself as well. So I love that you spin instructor like this is okay. All right then. Okay, so both of you have slightly different stories about how you started in your private practice. You started that as part-time, Dr. Guy. You more so, you lost the job and just kind of felt, I got to do something else. For me, I was kind of forced into it, like Dr. Guy said earlier. What do you think was the hardest part about starting the private practice? What was the hardest part for each of you?
I can start that off. The hardest part was letting things go, meaning like I started off, we had to get out of our own way. And so for like the first year, I was doing everything. I was sending out the intake. I was doing the insurance verifications. I was answering the emails, answering the calls, receiving referrals, calling hospitals back. And I was doing it all. And I will say I was exhausted. I look back on pictures during my first year and I could just see the tiredness in my eyes. And even though I'm smiling, and I was like, oh, I was exhausted, like burnt out. So the biggest lesson that I have learned, and I'm so grateful that I've adapted to it. You know how they say, scared money doesn't make money. Mm-hmm. And that's literally where I was. It was like, okay, I was scared to let people do these things because in my mind, I don't want to lose money. And so that's when I said, I need the virtual assistant. I need the billing specialist. I need someone that handles my website, social media platforms. I need someone that's going to keep well of my calendar, my social calendar, as far as speaking engagements and things like that. And so having those people in place has really removed so much stress off of my stress and anxiety, because I am able to step away from my phone and not be thinking, did I respond to that email? Did I answer that call? Did I do this? Did those claims get processed? I don't need to worry about that because I have the proper people that I trust. And I'm not talking like family members, no, people that I really researched and I trust in knowing that they're going to follow through with what it is that I'm asking them to do. Thank you.
I will definitely say that everything that Dr. Stephens just said, I want to start there. You are a one-woman show when you start your private practice in the beginning. And so doing everything, I was in the same place, literally learning how to do everything. But I would say the biggest challenge for me was the mindset. It was shifting from understanding that, yes, I am a licensed professional counselor, but I'm a business owner. And so those look very different. And I think Dr. Nick kind of mentioned this earlier, is that our clinical programs do a phenomenal job at teaching us how to be clinicians. but there isn't one class that teaches us how to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. And so that was literally the hardest part that I struggled with, because in order to figure out what Dr. Stephens said, that now you have to hire some people, you have to delegate, because that's what business owners do, right? You have to interview some people and make sure you bring on competent people, because this is a business, it's not a hobby. Understanding what the logistics of a business looks like, and did you have a business plan, and what does that look like, and how do you develop it? And marketing, oh my goodness, take the wheel, Lord. Did nobody tell me what marketing was, and that as a therapist, you actually need to market your practice? Those were some of the challenges. And so I think once I was able to wrap my brain around, you are now a business owner, you're an entrepreneur who is also a professional counselor, now learn how to merge the two, things started to roll. But that took a while for me. In fact, I had to go back to school and get 2 more degrees, an MBA, a master's in entrepreneurship and leadership, for it to click, like, you've been thinking the wrong way. So that was my biggest challenge.
Okay, now y'all done called me out, because I y'all know, I just started out. My first day of my private practice was July 1st. That's when I saw my first client, and I'm doing it all. I'm like, I can't get that external outside sources yet, the resources just yet, and hire people on. I'm not in that position, but I see how important that is, because eventually you will burn out trying to do everything. I'm answering emails and handling referrals and all the things. And I'm like, yeah, I might want to take on some form of help. And then Dr. Guy, you just made me think about the marketing aspect. Marketing and how it looks different now than maybe for someone who started their private practice 15, 20 years ago, because marketing is very different now. We have social media. It can be your full marketing. Like someone recently asked me, do you have a business card? And I thought to myself, I don't even get business cards because everything is on Facebook. I can just give them the Facebook page. So we don't do the same things that people did who started private practices years ago. So how have you seen marketing shift? Oh, everybody's muted.
Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Guy.
For me, there was a huge shift, because when I first started, marketing did look like there was digital information, right? So there were business cards. I mean, there was paper, but also I went to different doctors' offices and agencies. I physically made the rounds in the community to say, hey, I'm here. And so we called it the 7 point of contact, where we would go out. First, we would make a phone call to say we're in the community. Then we would pop up with snacks and donuts and treats and a little magnet, so you could be reminded that we're in practice. And then we would follow up with another phone call to say, well, thank you. It was so nice to have an opportunity to meet you. And if they hadn't sent us any referrals in like the next 2 weeks, then we would follow up with another gift or something to say, hey, we're just here. Like, it was work to go out into the community and just say, we're here. It looks so differently. And we had to pay for that, right? Like, those services weren't free. So that marketing had a budget to it that looked different. Now there are some free marketing because you can use social media, but then there's also a budget attached to it, because if you're going to run ads, you're going to have to pay for your ads, but then you have to learn that there's a way to run an ad. So if you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, every platform has its own special modality for running ads. So you have to think about what is going to be your marketing budget, and you literally want to make sure there's a budget for marketing.
Yeah, and that Dr. Guy definitely capitalized on every element of marketing. I'm gonna go old school. I am a pen, paper, envelope, stamp, address, mail lady. And what I did the Google search of all of the local hospitals in the area, all the local schools within 10, 20-mile radius, urgent cares, libraries, police departments, wherever I could go to see these resources for the community, community centers for elderly, recreation centers, anywhere that I can think of that I could send something to. I had created my own announcement with my picture and my bio and what I specialize in. And I took it old school. I went back, I'm not tech savvy, so I had to do something that would be comfortable for me. And that was comfortable for me, writing and mailing off and sending cards and calling and following up with offices, looking at the community websites for mental health services for Prince George's County, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and being added to those to those websites. So it took time and research. And if somebody would say something, I would be on a listen and say, oh, I need to jot that address down or get that name of that location so I can send them an announcement. And so by that, and then also, of course, your insurance companies, calling the insurance companies that you're credentialed with and speaking with their customer representatives in your area that are designated and localized for your area. So I had a young lady that I spoke with, and her and I developed a working relationship. And whenever individuals were calling their member services line for behavioral health, and they gave specific criteria, I want an African-American female in the DC, Maryland, Virginia, she's like, I got the right person for you. So she already had somebody on hand to call instead of going to her search engine and seeing who is available. And so developing that relationship with all of the insurance panels that I'm contracted with, that was another way that, oh, let me call Dr. Stephens first because I know that I have her information. I don't need to go searching for her information. So that taking it old school was a great way. Yes. And I have business cards, and it's so funny because someone just asked me for one the other day, and I was like, I said, we still do business cards? I said, I haven't carried one in months. And again, because everything is online. And so that's going to take me back to my roots and say, girl, put the business cards back in your wallet because people are still using them. And so, yeah, the marketing, you have to definitely look at what's going to be most comfortable for you. You have a lot of people that are tech savvy, and they will go with what the dominant culture is now doing, but I'm that's not my speed. So I have to slow down a bit and do what's best for me. So finding what's going to work for you in support of getting your name out there is the best thing that I can tell you in support of marketing.
Okay. So I'm wondering now, because I also have to consider where we are, geographic area. So you ladies are in Dallas and the DMV area, heavily populated African-American areas. I am in Colorado. As far as clients I can see there in Colorado, not a lot of Black clinicians in Colorado. So that actually made it easier for me to not have to market so much, because as soon as somebody says, I want to speak with a Black therapist, it's only so many of us. And a lot of the ones that were already out there were full. So they would search around. And for me, Psychology Today was the biggest place for me to pull in new clients, because they would just go there, find Black therapists in Colorado, and we all would pop up, the little group of us. And then social media is another way. There are several clinician groups on Facebook where they will ask, hey, I got somebody in Colorado that's looking for someone. And then you just say, well, I'm in Colorado, send them my way. So I think it's become easier in some ways with social media, for sure. But there are some people who they prefer I need your business card. And I like that too. So I'm gonna get me some business cards. I plan to do that. Okay, so we talked about the marketing. You brought up insurance panels. You mentioned insurance panels. So right now I am self-pay. So what do you think in regards to those? I find so many of us clinicians now that are just coming out of school, we're like, we don't want to be on insurance panels because they make it so difficult and it's not even worth it. And like, I don't want to have to deal with all of that too. So what do you think in regards to paneling with insurance companies versus being self-pay?
You know, I want to start this conversation off because I straddle the fence on this, definitely being a part of that group of my girlfriends and friends and colleagues who are entering into the private practice industry, and they're not licensed with insurance panels. And knowing what I know, I would say, yes, that is the best decision to do, because it totally removes the headache that comes with insurance panels, and like I said, getting a billing specialist that will do specifically just that, all your billing matters, because trying to keep track of those claims, baby, you will pull out your hair and you will go gray because you're trying to make sure you're getting all of your money. So I can see how some individuals don't want to go through the insurance route because of the paperwork and keeping track of making sure everything is going to come through paid. On the flip side, if we're working with underrepresented communities and we're working with individuals within different and various socioeconomic status and classes, I can totally see how someone wants to pay $20 versus $125 for a session. I know I would. If I have insurance, I have insurance, yes, $20 will cover my therapy session versus coming out of my pocket paying $300 for my therapist. By God, she's great and I love her dearly, but I will take $20 and I love the fact you're getting your money, sis, but I will, for me and mine, I will do the $20. So you have to keep both of those into perspective because also looking at, okay, and what am I doing this for? Am I doing this for the money or am I doing this for the betterment of behavioral health and to really progress the essence and the platform of mental health? And those things are two tricky things because you do want to create a livelihood for yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to shortchange yourself. But then also looking at, I don't want to manipulate or take advantage of the populations that I'm servicing. And so all those questions have to be answered and taken into consideration when you're looking at doing insurance versus non-insurance.
I definitely think that there are pros and cons to taking insurance. And so when I started my practice, I was credentialed with everyone, right? But even that was a difficult process because I didn't know how to do credentialing. So I had to learn, or I had to pay someone, and the average person was charging $60 to $100 for one insurance panel. So it's pretty expensive if you don't know how to use it. So I started off taking insurance, which was very helpful because it opened the floodgates for referrals. But then fast forward years later, after practicing for a while, I was like, when they started sending these emails about it's time to renew, I was like, oh, I'm no longer interested. So I transitioned out of taking insurance, but I had established a practice by then. I had a referral source of word of mouth and just other places. So I felt like I could afford to not have those referrals coming in from insurance companies. And so there are challenges when you don't know how to bill for something. Like I have a therapist friend right now, and she's been seeing clients taking insurance, but she has not billed not one session. And she's like, I don't know how to do it. How do I get my money? And that's like, see, this is one of the challenges. And so I think I asked her, where was her EHR system? And she said, what? That's like your electronic health record system that you're using to bill. She didn't know where to start at. And so I definitely think if you can get the support to teach you how to do that, absolutely move forward with it. And also think about where your practice is. For those that are virtual, it really doesn't matter. But if your practice is in a certain part of town, what are your clients that you're serving? Are they going to be able to sustain a cash practice? So for example, I'm in the DFW area, and there are clear areas that can sustain a cash practice. But then there are other areas that clients will come, but they're not going to sustain a cash practice. So you definitely need to be able to take insurance if you want to service that community. So I think those are a lot of the things that you have to think about. Do I know how to do it? Is someone going to teach me? Am I going to pay for it? Who are the clients that I want to serve? And at what point at some point, if you want to transition out, put that again in your business plan. I'm going to start now, and a year later, 2 years, 5, whatever, then I'm going to transition out. Because I think sometimes we don't know that you can stop taking insurance. I think they believe that once you start, you have to always take it, and that's not the reality.
And there are different rates that Medicare and Medicaid pay more than Care First or Cigna or Aetna. So understanding that as well when you're talking about insurance and looking at where you are, because when you said where you were, Ashley, I was like, you are absolutely right. You're in an area where people, and because you're in the military, a lot of people that get seen by you don't want the insurance to know, because that can them being able to remain employed. Whereas like where Dr. Stephens and I are in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, a lot of people have insurance, and it's fine for them to use their insurance. And like in my practice, we have a lot of folks that have Medicaid, and that's a whole different reporting thing. You know, you definitely need an EHR if you have Medicaid. but the rates are different. Like we get paid more for the Medicaid clients than I would for a Care First client. So understanding all of that as well.
Okay. Now, see, in the EHR, I have an EHR anyway, even though I'm self-pay, because I want to be able to keep up with my documentation. That's still important, whether you take insurance or not. And some people don't realize that. They feel like, well, if I'm self-pay, I don't have to worry about notes. Yes, you do. Documentation is still important. So I do use the EHR. And when I decided to go self-pay, because before the group practice I was with, all my clients had insurance and they used their insurance. It might have been maybe 1 or 2 clients that were self-pay because we didn't take their insurance. So a lot of my clients were like, oh, I don't know. I want you to get paid what you're worth, but I don't know if I'll be able to afford whatever your new rate might be without my insurance. So what I did for my existing clients, as I told them, you know what? I need my hours. Y'all want to stay with me. We gonna make this work. So I did a grandfathered rate for all of my previous clients. I was like, whatever your copay was, that's what you pay me. It's okay. And then any new clients, the regular rate I offer sliding scales on a case-by-case basis, and I take 2 pro bono clients. Like whenever I have 2 spots, I'll take 2 clients totally free. And I felt like that was my way of saying, because I know it's so many people who really need this service and they are underprivileged and they're in underserved populations, I want to make sure I make space for them still, whether I take insurance or not. So that was kind of my way of doing that. So that way no one has to say, well, she costs too much and I can't go. So I'm not sure if I'll ever take insurance just because of the difficulties I've heard other people explain. So if I don't have to, and if I can provide that service, because my populations of choice are Black and Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ, and military. These are 3 populations that sometimes need to use their insurance or that sometimes don't want to use insurance for job reasons. So I keep that in mind. The very populations I serve need me to be there and need to be able to afford it. So, I can't hear Dr. Nick. What'd you say?
You can renegotiate your rate with the insurance as well. So if you start taking the insurance and your rates change, you can go back to them and say, hey, my rates have gone up. Let's look at what you're paying me. I think that that's another thing that we forget. Like we feel like we get locked in and we have to take what they give us. And that's what we're almost kind of taught that. Like, again, like Dr. Guy said, started a conversation. Nobody tells us the business part of it. So we feel like we have to take what we're given. You can go back and renegotiate the rate. One of the things that recently happened in our area, Care First changed their rates. Like there was a rate increase. But if you didn't know that there was the rate increase, they were still paying some people at the old rate. The other thing in our area too, Care First started doing Medicaid. What Care First did though, when they started with the Medicaid, is they were paying for the Medicaid clients at their regular rate. So if you didn't go back and have a billing company go back and look at your invoices and look at what the insurance was for your clients, you were underpaid for some clients. So it's very important that you kind of diversify. And like they said, you have people that can do different things for you, because your focus really is seeing your clients and making sure that they're getting what they need.
Dr. Nick, I'm so glad you brought up that piece about negotiating your rate, because when you have other specialty areas, Dr. Stephens is certified in EMDR, or actually the fact that you are an African-American woman in the area where there are not probably a lot of African-American providers, and people are looking for them. And so you can call and use those to your benefit when you are wanting to negotiate your rates. If you're in a rural area, things like that really do help when insurance companies know that their provider source is very limited in that area.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Even since I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Guy, because so even for example, with the cookout, right? If you had some of those psychologists come on with you as part of your practice and operate virtually, now you've added on a different discipline, and that's a different rate with the insurance companies. So they pay different for psychology than they do for counseling than they do for social work. Yeah. And when you get paneled with them and you get the rate sheet, you see that there's all of these different rates. Just like if you're a group practice, you get charged, you get paid differently. So a group practice doesn't bill under your individual NPI number, they bill under the practice number, and they bill at a higher rate than you do as an individual. Again, things that we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, it amazes me that in our master's programs, even the ones that are K-CREP accredited, why is there not at least one class on what we need to do as a professional once we get out of school, whether you want your own private practice or not? Because the NPI number, that's important whether you go into group practice or your own practice. But I didn't know that until I went into doing my own practice, and I was like, oh, somebody said, did you get your NPI number? And I was like, wait, what? So I got it now, but I was not told that. Even my supervisor at the group private practice did not tell me that. So I'm like, you have supervisors out here not telling these people what they should be doing. And that's a problem too. It's not in the schools. You're not giving it in supervision. I'm like, well, we feel like we have to figure it out on our own.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I think that I know for me as a professor, I talk about it in all of my classes, whether it's the first class in the program or I'm teaching a practicum or internship class. And I talk about the skills that are necessary to prepare them once they graduate, because you literally don't know. And so there's a step-by-step checklist that I go through, and I talk about, okay, have you taken the exam yet? Once you take the exam, this is what you do. If you want to do private practice, it's X, Y, and Z. If you are going to work for an agency, it's this and that. But most importantly, find a supervisor that's going to align with doing the things that you want to do. So if you know you want to go into private practice, you might not want to select a supervisor who is not in private practice or has never been in private practice, because then they find that they align with these supervisors who don't necessarily know what it is that they want to do or how to do it, and then they switch, right? So now your hours, 300, 600 hours into it, and you're looking for a new supervisor. You want to find somebody that is going to provide you with the assistance that you need. Like, Ashley, you don't know what you don't know. So with my associates, because in Texas now we just changed the name from interns to associates when they're working on their independent licensure. By the time they finish their 3,000 hours with me, they know how to start their own private practice. Literally, once they finish, they're rolling out in their own private practices with tax ID, EPN, NPI number, knowing how to get a CAQH, every single thing that you would need to start a private practice. They're doing that because I understand no one taught me that. So I had to figure it out on my own. And if you're paying me for supervision, you're not just paying me for me to supervise you based on your clinical work, you're paying for the whole experience so that I can make sure that you are a productive clinician and that you're then going to duplicate this cycle and hopefully do this for somebody else. So I'm glad that you brought up that piece about supervision and what's important.
Mm-hmm. What you said, Dr. Guy, a lot of supervisors don't do that because they're very focused on their business. When you said what happened in your situation with your supervisor, I was like, I would have just said, I'm going to continue to supervise you virtually and we will get your hours. And very similar to you, Dr. Guy, our interns, when they leave us, I don't care what you're planning to do. I want you to act like you're going to do your own private practice, because what you need to do your own private practice, you'll need wherever you go. And Dr. Malik asked if we could talk about the differences between a group practice and an individual practice. So I'm going to let the panel do that, but because I've talked so much. But I think that it's very important. And I think that's also why it's important to make sure that we have supervisors that look like us. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I will say, just before we get to Dr. Rahim's question, my first supervisor did not look like us. Now, for everything she did, this is where I did my internship. She has a group private practice. She did have her own private practice. So she had the experience. She was a licensed clinical social worker. She had 27 plus years experience. So no, she didn't look like us, but she helped me when I needed it. She took me in as an intern in my practicum. So she gave me what was necessary. But when it came time for me to move, she could have supervised me virtually, but she didn't feel comfortable. And it was like, I've never supervised anyone virtually. I would rather you be here instead of move to another state, which was not a problem. But everything happens for a reason. I ended up getting connected with a supervisor who is one of us, and she is adamant about people being able to start their own private practice. So she was the one who said, oh no, you need to know all of this right now. We're gonna have your practice up and running so you can get your clients back. So with that switch, with the representation for us, that made a difference. All right, so we do have a question. I'm going to read his question so that way We can, oh yeah, group practice for the different benefits and differences with group practice and individual practice. So I'll let one of you start that.
So I do have a group practice. I started off in an individual. And I'll definitely say one of the biggest benefits of group practice is that you're not practicing solo. For example, I start off in an actual brick and mortar office. And so you were able to have someone else in the office if you needed to consult on a case. So that was helpful to have someone else there and have some additional support. But also, as far as billing and marketing, once we transitioned over from an individual solo practitioner to a group practitioner, it opened the doors up for other marketing potentials, because I brought on different therapists who had different specialty areas for myself. And so that made marketing a little bit easier. Also, when it came time for the insurance, as Dr. Nick said, you get paid at a higher rate when you have a group practice. So that was a benefit. Also, what I learned from having the group practice is when you go into private practice, you no longer have a 401k set up with your employer. You are the employer, right? You no longer have 4 weeks of vacation anymore. You have to set that up. So if you are in solo practice and you are seeing clients solely by yourself, if you did not write in a vacation plan for yourself, there is no vacation. Because if you're not seeing clients, you're not bringing in any money. So the group practice allows you to take that time away from your practice while there is still money coming into your practice. So it helps you set up a better financial support system within your practice if you have a group practice than if you were in solo practice. So for me, those were some of the benefits that I found versus the individual and the group. And the individual is that it's you're making the decisions, you're the only one practicing. Again, it's solo dolo. In a group, there are other people to consider. Even though it's your practice, you're bringing on other people that fit the mission and the vision of your practice. So it can be a little bit, I guess, better financially in those cases. But again, it provides that additional support as a clinician, so you're not in solo practice.
Dr. Guy summed that up very beautifully. I'm also to add, I knew that entering into this profession, I did not want to turn anyone away. And that's just my soft nature of my heart and the livelihood that I really do enjoy about the work that I do. And so once I got to my max of clients that I was seeing per week, I had to say, all right, either I'm going to say no, or I'm going to look at expanding and giving others opportunities. And like Dr. Guy said, that was a great way for me to bring other disciplines into my practice that I was not specialized in. I have a marriage and family therapist who strictly does just couples counseling and family therapy. I love individual work. I love working with a specific demographic. I have a child and adolescence therapist that specifically works with children. And so it allowed for that expansion and that inclusion within my platform. And for me to also learn from these clinicians in these areas that I necessarily have not done the further research or in-depth research for. But the financial piece is definitely the beneficial. And it does give you that separation to step away from work and still have income coming in, or passive income coming in. And that was the biggest thing that led me into group practice, was being able to include others that necessarily would not have gotten the freedom or the flexibility of when working with community agencies or federal government agencies as they would in private practice.
So one of the things that I would say also on what Dr. Stephens said, so going into the group practice, like my practice, we go after contract work. So being a group practice, we have clinicians that we can then assign to the contracts when we win them. So that's why we went into the group practice, because what we recognize, kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, as far as the income, is that billing insurance wasn't making it. We were making enough money to pay the people that worked for us, but we weren't making enough money to pay us. And so we were like, we have to do something. And so we said, we need to make this a group practice, hire on more clinicians that will take care of the infrastructure. And then we can start going after these additional things, because every state has contracts for mental health work. You just have to be able to position yourself to go after that work.
And Dr. Nick, can I piggyback on that piece about the picking up contracts? So I was 10 years into my practice before I started even looking at contract work. And I started working with a young lady, and she said, "All right, do you have the minority-owned business certification?" And I was like, "No, I'm a minority. Why do I need that certification?" And so she said, "Because you're leaving money on the table." And so after working with her, I got the certification for minority-owned business. I got the disadvantage certification, and it literally put you in an arena to apply for this grant money that's offered by the state every single year. And so I was in practice 10 years before I tapped into any of those resources, because you don't know what you don't know.
Since you're right, Ashley, you want minority owned, woman owned.
Yes, to get your minority business, your NBE certification.
Okay.
You can do veteran owned as well. So with those, that not only opens you up, it opens you up for a federal contract.
Yep.
So with the federal contracts, and again, this isn't something that we know, about $5 billion of mental health a year. In contract work.
A year.
That we don't get as minorities because we don't know about it. And so we don't go after it. So
thank y'all, because now I needed to know that. You saw how quick I got that pen when she said that. I said, let me write that down.
Get yourself established as a group practice, because you have people that can then do the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so minority owned, you can get that through your state, and then okay, I see you, Dr. Guy, you put it in there. So minority owned, you can get through your state, and then that'll flow through the federal. But for your woman owned and for your veteran owned, those are federal programs.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to add something to the question about the group versus private. So I worked for a group practice, and then I went into my own private practice. And the one thing I was warned about was how lonely private practice can be when you're by yourself. And I noticed it initially because the group that I worked with, we had bi-weekly staff meetings and consultation. So it was a group of all of us together talking about different things, being able to talk to each other about different clients, different struggles we were having. And I missed that. That was one of the first things I was like, okay, I miss having that. So I made sure to build up my support system. I have several other friends that are clinicians, and we talk and we have little group meetings, and because you need that. So that's the one big difference between group and private practice, is it can be very lonely in private practice. And when you need consultation, it's a little bit harder. So that's the thing that I would tell, especially new clinicians. If you're new to the field, you will need the support of other clinicians. So to have your own private practice and not have that support will probably lead to burnout much faster than if you have the support. Have we got any more questions? Let me see. Okay. Now I do have one last question that I wanted to ask, because since we're talking about business and getting these different certifications for the particular type of business you are, one of the questions that came up for me as I was starting out and getting everything together was, do I want to be a sole proprietor or do I want to have an LLC? And people thought differently about that, which one you should get. So what do you ladies think in regards to that? Do you go for your sole proprietorship or do you go get the LLC?
So for me, and even now when I teach this to my associates, in the beginning, again, the mind shift, we're not necessarily thinking about business owners, right? We're thinking about, how can I get into this practice as quick as possible so I can help the people that I want to help?
Yeah.
But it is a business.
And make some money.
And don't leave that out, Dr. Stephens, and leave some money and make some money. So when you can think about, if I need to set it up quickly, but maybe I don't have the financial funds, you can do a DBA, right? Doing business as, which is, $40. But when it comes time to file your taxes, you leave a lot of money on the table if you're solo. if you think in terms of creating the LLC, you're going to pay a little bit of money on the front end to get it set up if you don't know how to do it yourself. But there are all these benefits that you're going to receive as a business owner, right? I can write off these things now that I can't write off with the DBA or if I'm as a solo practitioner. So if I'm thinking in terms of a business person, right? I'm an entrepreneur, I'm running a business. What's in the best interest of my business long term? And taxes are a mother. So you want to be able to recoup some of that because we are constantly investing in ourselves, in our business, in our training. It doesn't stop once you go into private practice. In fact, it increases, right? You find that you're spending more money on professional development. And so you want to be able to write off some of those things. And the LLC allows you to do that. Whether you're doing a PLLC, an LLC, but definitely there's a huge difference between a solo and getting your LLC.
Okay, right. You're absolutely right. I had to do it so fast that the DBA was the quickest thing. It was easy. It was pay this $40, get this DBA so you can start. But I have been, I'm like, within the year, I want to transition it into the I think I have to do the PLLC. I am. But I want to transition it because I'm like, I don't know if when tax time comes out, oh, it's going to be different for me. I have never had my own practice or my own business. So this will be very different for me. And it's interesting because our podcast has an LLC. We went the LLC route. It was 4 of us. So we were like, we want to make sure we do this as a business. So we instantly did the LLC route. But by myself, it's just me. I don't know the benefits of doing an LLC if it's just me.
It's just you today, Ashley.
It may not be
just you in 6 months.
We're gonna speak that into existence, Ashley, because we're gonna. You've been saying that the whole time.
It's gonna grow.
But let me also add to this. Make sure that you all have a bookkeeper. It is so necessary. Actually, it's not even that. It's a requirement to have a bookkeeper that's going through your books and looking at all of the expenses coming in, coming out, what your revenue is for the month. Again, I was doing everything in the beginning, and I was like, I don't know how long I'm going to last in this business if I have to do everything by myself. And when I found my accountant through my good girlfriend, I'm like, I thank Kelly every day. We meet once a month. I say, I thank you. I thank God for you because she's gotten all of my accounts in order. She's taught me in regards to knowing about the LLC versus sole proprietorship. I wouldn't have known about that. It takes one time to get that tax bill, one time. And you will learn real quick, what do I need to do? Where's my bookkeeper so that I can have all of this clean in top order so that I won't be giving my money and my hard-earned money away. So that's the biggest thing that, again, I'm a person that truly believes you keep smart people around you. This is why they've gone to school for these certifications and these degrees and these specialties. And so for me to get in trying to do my bookkeeping, I went to school for counseling. And so I'm going to link up with someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to numbers, math, and keeping my books in order, as well as all my tax information in order. Also being taught about what credit looks like for small businesses. You know, I think all of us have gotten those cards in the mail to get your business credit card. And I'm like, I don't need another credit card. I'm not even going to do that. But my accountant, she says, no. She says, apply for one. She says, this will definitely keep everything streamlined business-wise. And it also will be reporting back to the Small Business Financial Administration or Association, something like that. But it's your credit score for small businesses. And so when you have these credit cards, when you get a small business credit card and you're doing your monthly recurring, like I have all of my subscriptions for my EHR, my website, monthly fees or annual fees, I have all that going to the business card and that's paying off. And so my business has a credit score that is reported on a 90-day basis to SBFA. And again, it keeps Lenese Stephens a separate entity, and now it's looked at as, oh, this is an employee of Hopeful Counseling. So you won't know these things unless you get linked with people who are working within those different elements. And you definitely want to be with someone that understands the taxes and the financial components of owning your own business.
And can I add this to, I'm sorry. I just want to add, because listening to Dr. Stephens, I was thinking about another piece about starting the LLC or just the practice period. When you think about your business, right, and how it's going to grow, which we never know what that's going to look like, but where you are today may not be where you're going to be 10 years from now. And so you can set your business structure up so that it allows you to have growth. And so if you create, for example, the LLC as your holding company, that they call it, you can have up to 7 other additional businesses that fall underneath your LLC. So now you don't have to keep going back and setting up these different LLCs. You set up one overall business, which people typically don't know what your holding company is, right? Your holding company can be Red, Blue, and Green LLC. But underneath Red, Blue, and Green LLC are your different business lines that fall underneath your holding company. So the holding company holds your assets, holds your money, right? But these other businesses fall underneath there. But now you can grow and you can create these additional businesses. And no one told me that years ago, right? I had to learn that. But now my business is set up. I went back, set up a holding company, and now I have these different streams that fall underneath there.
About now, Guy. So with our practice and going after contracts, we're looking at going after contracts in janitorial services, security, other areas. And the reason we got into that is we have clients that come in, right, for career counseling. And these are areas that they work in. So taking a holistic approach, okay, so you're coming in, you're getting the therapy, but you need a job. Let us support you in getting that as well, right? So that is the entire purpose and way that we got into that. But I was going to say something to what Dr. Stephens said when she was talking about the credit, which kind of goes back to the top of the conversation when we were talking about money. So your business credit card can be used to pay off your business bills while you're waiting on the payments that you get from insurance claims, from folks that are private pay, because there is always going to be a lag between when your claim or your invoice is submitted and it's being paid, but you still have the expenses that you have for running a business. So you can and you pay your bills with your credit card, then you pay your credit card off, which improves your business credit rating. So your DUNS number and all of those things go up. So when you're getting ready to go after contracts, so like we submitted a proposal to Baltimore City to do work with children and do counseling in the community. And part of that, we actually had to show how viable our business was. And we had to have our DUNS rating. And then there's another rating that you get for your business that estimates how long your business will be around based off of how you pay your bills and stuff. And we had to submit those two along with the proposal that we wrote. So it's very important that when you're looking at these things that you consider all of that in your business plan and in your model. And there is a question in your chat.
Let me see. All right, so Dr. Malik said currently he is a full-time professor, but he's thinking about the possibility of starting his own practice. Listening to the discussion, he's thinking a group practice might be best. How would I begin setting that up? Do I try joining an already established group practice?
If you're looking to start your own practice, the setup is the same, solo or group. So if you decided that you want to set it up as a group, you walk through the same steps, you're going to do the same paperwork. It's just going to, again, you're setting up an LLC or PLLC, and then you're going to bring other therapists onto your business. So to me, those are two different things. If you go work at a group practice, that's working for someone else's practice. You're not building your practice. Now you can get experience working at someone else's group practice, which is no different than working at an agency or someplace else. But if you are ready to walk into entrepreneurship and become your own boss, then you are setting up your practice. And now you're going to create these other streams for therapists to come on board. And so the steps are literally the same. And one of the great parts about setting up practices is that there are some awesome and phenomenal therapists that are working for agencies that they don't want to work at anymore. They don't like the pay. Maybe these agencies are maybe even a bit unethical in their practice. And so they don't want to be in their own private practice. They don't want to do the business side of it, but they strictly want to see clients, and they're good at seeing clients. These are the people that you're looking for because they're invested in what they do. And if you take care of your contractual, if you decide to set them up as contractual, or if you bring them on as employees, if you're taking care of them, then they'll take care of you, and they'll continue to invest in your group. And so that's really the other thing to think about is, how am I going to invest in the people that are going to be working at my group so that I can keep them as a part of my group?
Okay. All right. So yes, if you go into another group, you're working for somebody still. If you want to start your own, it looks the same, and starting a group practice benefits others because you're going to get therapists who want to come on. You're going to get, especially those who are fresh out of school. Like fresh out of school, I was all about going into a group practice because I knew I didn't want to do agency work. So went to group practice and then got thrust into private practice, and that's okay. One of the last things I want to mention, just earlier, we were talking about, private practice and how financially that's a struggle sometimes in the beginning. For those who do their own private practice, I learned very quickly that having multiple streams of income is important. So if you can do other things, if you can speak at engagements and be paid, or if you can, take on maybe a part-time class work or something like that, that's going to benefit you to be able to take those vacations when you need to, because you have other streams of income coming in. So that's really important if you want to do it by yourself. It's a private practice.
And keep in mind, those multiple streams of income does not always have to be behavioral health related.
Right.
Listen to what I just said. Certified spin instructor. Ain't got nothing to do with behavioral health. I go pump my trap music, I go ride that bike, and go about my day.
I would venture to say that still got to do with mental health.
It is, but at the same time, I don't have to think about clients. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say. Politically correct. Again, trap music. Did you hear what I said? I'm bumping my trap music mixed with my gospel. I'm getting my heart rate up, and I'm getting a paycheck for it. It's no better combination.
Yeah.
I think that's
multiple
so
streams.
Important, the multiple streams that you said. And when I went back to the challenges, I think for us as professional counselors, we really have to shift our mind around money and not just thinking this is about me helping people, because most importantly, it's about that service. But also, it's about you being able to live a comfortable lifestyle so that you can take care of yourself, so that you can continue to do those services. And so the conversation around money, what I find is very difficult for a lot of professional counselors. So when you start talking to them about diversifying their income, they put themselves in this box as if I went to school for this amount of time to only do this one thing. And that's not the reality. With your license and your experience and all these other areas, please diversify your income. If you do not diversify your income, you might find that you are heading towards burnout very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes. This was so great. Thank you, Miss Ashley.
Thank you. I was so worried. Like I told y'all, when I got asked to moderate, I said, not with these professional women who've been out here doing all the things, but it was great. I got some good feedback for myself, and I think it was awesome.
So I have one other question. And I know that Dr. Stephens has to leave, so I want to ask you really quickly. Dr. Guy, you talked about contractors versus employees. Can you two talk about the pros and cons?
I'll start because I will have to, and I know Dr. Guy is going to wrap it up and take us on home here. Tax purposes. I'm not doing any of the taxes. That is on them. I will pay you a flat fee. I will do the 1099, and I will have that document. Again, get you a bookkeeper. It takes one time to get a tax bill. And if you don't have to get one, get you a bookkeeper so that you can get the direct instructions on how to do things. And when they ask you and tell you to do things, do it, because it's in the benefit of making sure you preserve your money and more money's not being just blown out of the window for nothing. So tax purposes is the reason why I have contractors versus employees. And even the interns that I do bring on as contractors, they're still contractors. I'm not going to incorporate employees into my practice as of yet, because I don't want to have to deal with the taxes. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Nick, for having me. Thank you so much, Ashley. And many blessings to everyone. Dr. Guy, I know you're going to finish us up and take us on home here. Thank you so much for your presence and your expertise. Everyone,
And I hope you feel better.
thank you.
Dr. Stephens, feel better.
Thank you.
I would just add on to that. Absolutely, the tax purposes is probably the biggest difference, and you want to make your life easier instead of harder. And so if you're bringing on employees, then you're responsible for a whole nother series of things. So to make it as clear, cut, and simple, contractual, so that I'm paying you a certain rate, and now you're responsible for filing your own taxes. You're pretty much functioning as your own business owner. So it definitely takes some of that responsibility off of you if you do contractual versus employee. Because you don't have to set up for Social Security, you don't have to offer benefits, retirement, all those other things that you would typically have to offer if they're employees.
Thing I will say with that is, if you do decide to do like my business, like we've said, we're going after different types of contracts. We do have to hire people because they'd be a subcontractor on our contract. So we have set ourselves up with the state to do all of those things, but that's stuff that you have to know how to do. I come from an HR background before I was a therapist, so already knew.
Very helpful.
See, that's very helpful to have that background.
Yeah, an employee handbook, all of that stuff in place before we decided to expand and start doing these other things. But that's where having those expertise is important. Okay.
Well, I think this has been very informative. I know I learned a lot. It's some things I have to look into that I still didn't know about. And I see that I started to practice and still didn't know. I am definitely thankful for you, Dr. Guy, and for Dr. Stephens that had to go. I hope everyone was able to take something away from this discussion today. If you have any further questions, you could always reach out to, I'm sure, Dr. Nick. All of my information should be posted somewhere, but I'll put it in the chat too. And if you have any feedback, anything you'd like to say to finish us out, you are more than welcome to do so now.
I just want to say thank you guys all for giving me an opportunity to come on here this morning. This is definitely my wheelhouse. As I stated when I started, that I have transitioned over from me working with clients directly to actually coaching other therapists and helping them start their private practices and grow them. So if anyone is interested in getting the support or the coaching to walk them through the process, if you're an Ashley and you are thrusted into this and you're trying to get up and running, then definitely feel free to contact me. I'm going to place our website in the chat, and we have a 90-day coaching program that literally gets you up and running in 30 days with the paperwork, support from our Facebook group, weekly meetings. And so you have someone literally walking you through the process, holding your hand and saying, do this first, do that next, so that you don't feel alone in the process.
All right. Well, we will wrap up now. I put my Instagram on there, but that's the better one for me, because if you send me a DM, I'm going to reply right away. So if you got that one, you're good. And then I'll give you all the other information there. Also, everyone remember to check out the Clinical Cookout. That's the same on all platforms. We have 3 episodes out now and a live episode as well. And that's just we talk about all things, even private practice. That'll probably be a discussion soon. But we talk about all things mental health and how it affects the Black community particularly. So if you haven't checked that out, subscribe on our YouTube channel and watch the show. Dr. Nick, you got anything else for us?
I want to thank our phenomenal panelists. As always, Black excellence. That's all we bring when we bring these discussions. We will not see you next month, but we will see you in October. I had to think about what next month is. Don't judge me. I've told you all earlier, I'm not feeling well. We have posted what the discussion topics will be. So if you're interested, like, we're going to be talking about outside of off the couch, like what are there other careers that you can do with your counseling degree other than being a therapist? We're going to be looking at the past in order to move ahead, exploring what therapy has looked like for the Black community and what lessons we have learned. So we have some phenomenal topics coming up, and we definitely want you all to be on the lookout, be a part of the discussion. We'll have other panelists. I'm pretty sure we'll have Dr. Guy back because Treeson's brought up a few different things that I'm like, okay, he'll be back.
Anytime.
We definitely will have Ashley back as moderator and as a panelist because she is phenomenal. And Dr. Malik, again, thank you all. We appreciate you all participating on a Sunday, and enjoy the rest of your day. Be blessed and have a wonderful week.
Everyone, thank you so much.